everyone, and welcome to INDSA Podcast. Here on INDSA Podcast, we strive to inspire everyone to choose the food that brings the good, as well as to dive into the nutrition and dietetics community to know more about it. I'm your host for today, Sylvia Ho, a nutrition alumni from IMU. Welcome to today's episode, the introductory episode of the INDSA Podcast. With us today is none other than Ms. Choo Pei Yee, the creator of INDSA Podcast and the event director of INDSA. The INDSA Podcast proudly made by students for the students. It will only be fair if we invite the creator of the podcast series, Ms. Choo, to share more about how it all started, what are the expectations, and towards the end, the hopes for future, what can we achieve from this podcast as NDT students. Without further ado, let us welcome Ms. Choo. Hi, Pei Yee. Would you like to briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thank you so much for having me. I'm Pei Yee. Okay, I'm a Year 3 Dietetics and Nutrition student in IMU and one of the event directors for INDSA. And as an event director, one of the projects is this event, INDSA Podcast. Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit nervous. Yeah, this is the first time having a podcast. Yeah, I think that's all about it.
Hi, Pei Yee. So it's great to have you here. Our pleasure, as you are the creator for this podcast series. It's okay. We all are the first timer and we are both very nervous, but we hope that we can convey our sincere message to our audience. So let us move on. Since we're very nervous at the beginning, let us move on with a small mini ice-breaking game so that we can loosen up a bit. Okay, so I'll ask you 5 questions in total and you're required to answer it as fast as possible. You have to answer the first thing that crosses your mind with no awkward gaps at all. Are you ready, Pei?
Okay, sure.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Number 1, what is your favorite subject throughout the course of study?
Medical nutrition therapy.
Okay, second question, what is your favorite food in Peninsula?
Chicken noodle soup.
The question, if you were to go back to semester 1, what's the one thing that you wish you would know back then?
Join more extracurricular activities that can expand my interests.
Especially INDSA.
Yes.
Okay. Fourth question, who inspired you the most to be who you are today?
My mom. Yeah.
Okay, my mom too. Last but not least, which spot is your favorite spot in IMU?
Anywhere near a window or a wall. So specifically maybe at PBL, again, a table against the wall, or at Collab, a table near the windows. Yeah.
To relieve all the stress by viewing the scenery, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Pei Yee. Well done for the ice-breaking game. So let's move on to the second part, where we will be introducing more about INDSA, what is INDSA all about, and how do you come up with this INDSA podcast. So for the first question, I'm sure the audience will be very interested and curious to know about is that INDSA. So the word INDSA, INDSA, what does it stand for? And then would you like to clear the doubt by briefly introducing what INDSA is all about?
Okay, so INDSA stands for International Medical University Nutrition and Dietetics Students Association. Yes, it's a bit long, but it's basically a student body that represents the NDT students, and we hope to build their social and professional development through internal and external extracurricular activities. And we actually strive to provide a platform for social engagement amongst the NDT community, be it juniors, seniors, alumni, or even lecturers. Yes.
Wow, sounds so good. We finally have our very own body for the NDT community in IMU. That's good. Next, I would also like to ask, since you are the creator for this podcast series, would you also like to briefly introduce what is this INDSA podcast all about to our audience?
Sure, but I'm not one of the I'm not the only creator, but it comes from me and my partner. Both of us are event directors, of INDSA. So we started back in April 2020, and we just brainstormed. We wanted to have a platform that we can apply whatever we learn in lectures about nutrition and dietetics in a new and modern way, which is via digital, right? And I believe it is also part of our daily life. So it's very important to learn these skills. That's what I think. And personally, I think it's very important to know how to transmit those knowledge you learn to the public. And this way, this INDSA podcast is a very good channel for us as a student to build that before stepping into the real world. Yeah, that's what I think.
Wow, sounds great. I'm really excited about this whole podcast series. Pei Yee, would you also like to share where you get your inspiration of starting this podcast, where you and your partner actually get this inspiration of starting this podcast from?
Inspiration is because both of us really enjoy listening to podcasts but it's not nutrition. We just listen based on our free time, and we're always taught that in the end, right, dietetics and nutrition, we are only constricted to these three fields, which is the food service management, community nutrition, and clinical field, which is you work in the hospital. I was wondering, is that just it? How about other fields? And then we were never really exposed to that in IMU. So I believe that through INDSA Podcast, we can explore on that, media or digital world, and just really transmit our knowledge through this channel. And that's how INDSA is formed. Yes.
I certainly can't wait for the first episode to be premiered. Really looking forward for it. Maybe would you also like to sneak peek some of the future contents? Just a little bit would do.
Yeah, sure. So we have a lot of interesting episodes coming up, but I don't really want to spill anything. But I can let you know there's 2 series coming up. Okay, one is about career pathways, for the NDT community, and also another series that is covering about knowledge and breaking food myths that is quite trending now. Yeah, that's what we want to discuss about in the other series. There's one topic that I really look forward to is does our personality, should I say our MBTI, right, influences our career pathway. That is the topic that I really look forward to.
Well, from what you have really sneak peek, it all sounds very topic, the current trend. So I'm pretty sure it will benefit our future juniors and the NDT community. So much guidance and also preparation made by seniors for our juniors. So it's really exciting for the first episodes to really come out to the market. So when I was in year 2, when the pandemic hits and I have to find a placement for my internship, it was actually very hard for me to go through all this thing. I'm really glad that this podcast came into handy because it also share about the career pathway of nutritionists and also dietitian. Yeah, I hope that it will also benefit our juniors. Our juniors are really the lucky ones. We have you and also Meng Hui that come up with this whole podcast series that nobody could have vocal this opportunity for our NDT community. So we are certainly grateful for the appearance of this, the presence, I would rather say, of this podcast series. Okay, so we certainly hope that this podcast will help more NDT students out there. And like what Pei Yee say, since this is our introductory episode, it will also be fun for us to share with our future juniors and our juniors our experience as NDT students in IU. So Pei Yee, are you ready to share more about your experience to our audience?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the ultimate question, why do you choose to study dietetics in IU?
Oh, why dietetics? Actually, I was contemplating whether to take up dietetics or nutrition, but I was told that dietetics can work in the hospital. So, and I'm quite curious about that, so I just went for it. Why I choose IMU? Because it's just because that they offer a credit transfer to Australia, and I always aiming to study abroad lah. That's why I choose.
Okay, for me, I'm a nutrition alumni from IMU. So the reason why I choose nutrition was because I'm always interested about how food can actually, there's so much relationship between our body and association with foods and also our health. So that is the main reason why I chose to study nutrition, because it is more research and also community based. Like what Pei Yee said, she is interested in the hospital setting. I'm not interested in hospital setting, so I actually chose nutrition instead. And why I'm you is because IMU is rather near to my house. Okay, so moving on, how is your general experience like in IMU? Are there any unforgettable ones, or are there any funny side stories that you would like to share to our audience?
Unfortunately, like I get to have physical classes in my first year of uni, so there's not much I can share. I can share one that is very interesting lah. Like I forgot to mute my mic during lectures, so it's kind of embarrassing lah. Because we're so not used to it back then. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So you know how like when the pandemic hits and everything suddenly switches from the traditional classroom to virtual meetings and virtual all the classroom flip rooms, and we're requested to become adaptable and adjust immediately to this whole new settings which we are not really familiar with. And I'm also glad that we through this podcast we are also teaching our juniors about being creative in the digital field. So it's great. It's a great opportunity for our juniors. Moving on, Pei Yee, I happen to know that you are ex-batch representative for your cohort, the N119. So it's interesting how both of us happen to be the batch representatives. Would you also like to share more about the responsibilities and what you have learned through this role?
Okay. Like because I volunteered myself to be a class rep, it's not like I was chosen. No, I just want to experience it, because I was never a class monitor or batch rep in my primary or secondary school days. So I was always like wanted to have that opportunity. So I just volunteered myself. And one thing that I really learned a lot is how to properly communicate between my peers and the lecturers, because it's not easy actually to be the middleman. Yeah, and you just need to really harness that and be professional. I just truly appreciate the learning opportunities that I got, that no one can take away from me. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I certainly do feel relatable, because I felt that this role actually helps a lot in terms of building our interpersonal skills and certainly leadership skills, because there's so much responsibility as a batch representative, especially for the end part, because you have to really handle with a lot of students, right? But for us nutrition, we only have like a few number of students, like 5 or 6. So it's rather easy to manage. Although I must say it's not easy at all for me, if I have to handle 5 or 6 for other classmates. It's quite hard. It's like managing your children like that. Your classmate, your children, and then you have to be the middleman for your lecturers also, like to convey messages at the shortest amount of time, I would say, so that there won't be any presence of miscommunication, right, Pei Yee?
Yeah, you have to be like, how to say, to avoid any miscommunication, to have fast response sometimes, because the lecturers are was waiting for your response, basically.
Yeah, because of the recognition that we earn as a batch rep, we also have a lot of opportunity, even outside of our curriculum. Like for example,
Yes.
there's a lot of workshops or webinars or community services that I actually got offered by my program director or even my lecturers. So I believe that this is not a hard role to work on. Like you can definitely say that it's a very fruitful experience. Moving on, Pei Yee, I know that you have taken up a few responsibility, one of which is the ex-batch representative of the N119. And also you are the INDSA event director. And you are also creator of INDSA Podcast. And you're also in the DQ project, which is the same project as I do. But at the same time, we also know that you enjoy a lot of recreational activities like swimming and hiking a lot. So would you like to share with us how do you usually organize your time to ensure that you have a balance between work and life?
Work-life balance. Wow. Actually, truth be told, I still get stressed in HS a lot. Yeah, like I'm still learning along the way. But I told myself like, life still goes on, right? And everything is just a learning process. Everyone is the same as me. We are all learning, and I'm sure you also agree with me. We have to learn to adapt. Same goes during the pandemic. I was also all over the place. I don't know what can I do. I just told myself, okay, hey, it can't be this way anymore. So I try to stick to a routine, and it kind of helps me and heals me. So I just use this principle to manage my stress, my work-life balance, my anxiety, and it's all about learning, generally saying. I just all about learning. And if I were to explain more about the routine, right, it's just setting a time frame for myself. So I schedule my time for work. I also schedule a time for me time, which is to relax, don't touch about work or messages. And that is the my time to exercise or to watch K-drama, you can say so, or to read a book or to meditate. Just do whatever I like during that time frame. Yeah, that's one way that I manage it. But sometimes it's still very hard because there's work crashes that time also. So yeah, just learning.
Yeah, I agree. We are still learning all along the way. Even when we are, 100 years old or 80 years old, we are still learning anyways, right? And I certainly do agree with setting up a routine, like especially leaving a time slot out for our me time. It's really important for us to relieve stress through the me time. I would say every day, 1 to 2 hour me time would be sufficient. With a hot tea and a nice drama movie, it would be great. Okay. We are almost approaching the end, Pei Yee. Do you have any piece of advice that you would like to give to our juniors or our audience?
Anything, right? Just any piece of advice.
Yes, any piece of advice, any areas, just any piece of advice.
I mean, maybe this is also something for myself, right? Don't get stressed on yourself just because you don't know what you're doing in life. As long as you don't give up, you are always on the right track towards your goal. That's what I want to share with the juniors, for myself, and maybe for Sylvia as well.
Yes. I certainly do believe in baby steps. In accumulation will become gigantic, huge steps. So the efforts that we have made, little small steps that we have taken, it surely will come back to us with great fruits. So it is now the end of this introductory episode, Pei Yee. So before we end, would you also like to disclose your future hopes to our audience?
Okay. maybe I just hope that you enjoy today's podcast. I hope that I'm not too boring, you know. Yeah, please look out for more announcements, updates in INSA Instagram. Maybe follow us at INSA INDSA.IMU. Yeah, and just hope that you appreciate our hard work because we are working really hard to make every um, episodes, every event as enjoyable and fun for you all. Don't forget to check us out.
Thank you, Pei Yee, for joining us today. Just like what Pei Yee say, we are first timers in this whole podcasting. Me and Pei Yee are both first timers in hosting a podcast series. So if there's any areas that we can improve on, please do bear with us. Please do bear with us. We will surely improve. That's all for today. So in case you haven't followed the INSA official Instagram yet, please do follow like what Pei Yee say. It's at insa.imu, INDSA.imu. That's all for today. Thank you all so much for tuning in to our podcast. We hope that this podcast has impacted our listeners and brought about insights to the nutrition and dietetics field. This is INSA Podcast, inspiring everyone to choose the food that brings the good. Bye-bye.
Bye.